Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul O'Donovan. I am Senior Director of Product at Mediakind, and I've been in the industry now for about 22 years. I'd like to think that gives me the ability to distinguish between a product that looks good in a PowerPoint compared to one that looks good in the real world. And that's actually what the next 20 minutes is about, a product that looks good in the real world, not just on a PowerPoint. You've got to press the green button really hard. Top tip for the next presenter. So, let's be honest. We heard a lot yesterday that content is king, and people aren't churning away or leaving services because of the content. They like it. They're churning away potentially because of control. So let's think about a use case here. It's Saturday afternoon. There's 4 matches, call it football matches, tennis matches, choose your sport, all kicking off at the same time, all starting at the same time. And your subscribers are watching. They're watching one, but they're also on their phone, maybe on social media, maybe looking at stats. Heaven forbid, maybe they've got another streaming service open on their tablet and they're watching something else on their tablet. So they're fully engaged, their brains are fully engaged, but they're not fully engaged with you. Their brains are all over the place, and that's a problem. Because European rights holders, operators, you have very, very strong rights. But they're not necessarily being utilized to the best of the ability. So I want to spend the next 17 minutes now investigating one statement. In the moments that matter most, it's time to own the experience. And we're going to look at an operator in the US, Comcast, who did just that. So the challenge that they had was a fragmented sports ecosystem. People having to go to different apps, different services to follow their favorite teams. And let's take a look at what they did to make it easy.
It's the middle of the night.
I'm watching the Premier League and learning a little Spanish for La Liga. Campeones del Mundo Motivo Deportes. Loosely translated, I'm the best at watching sports.
I heard screaming. I thought I heard some sobbing. And now you're learning languages?
Sports never sleep, come on.
But humans do. With the World Soccer ticket from Xfinity, there's just way too many matches to watch.
There's over 1,500 to be exact.
You couldn't watch all of those. You'd never sleep. And where did you find my scarves? Those are collectibles. They're meant to be hung, not worn.
I thought you'd...
Those are hangers, not wearers.
A wise man once
asked... You take a selfie and then you take those off.
A wise man once asked, how can you be the best at watching sports without Xfinity? Come here, wise man.
Man City?
Here he comes.
If I may?
Mi casa es su casa.
No. Where?
Okay, so when Vince Vaughn tells you to take a selfie, you take a selfie. Quick show of hands, would it have been funnier if I turned up on stage wearing a dressing gown and football scarves? Yes? Hands up, yes? Hands up, no. Damn. Okay, next year, I'll dress up. So, what you just saw is not a demo. It runs every weekend, over 1,000 multi-view streams across major sports at huge scale across the US. So this is not innovation in a lab, it's not a test, it's real innovation in production. And Comcast have told us that this has affected their customer base in a positive manner, very important that bit, more than anything else they've launched as a feature in the last 10 years. Let that sink in. Huge impact on their customer base. So, going back to some of the things we've heard from European pay TV operators. I was here yesterday. I think this, by and large, matches what we've heard. With over 200 million European subscribers to streaming services, subscriber churn is a huge, huge problem in the European market. Less so than in the US, but still a problem. And operational costs are a challenge as well. Budgets are getting lower, you're expected to do more with less, you're expected to keep up with the speed of innovation from the streaming platforms, but with less money to do it. And sports is a really, really strong asset. They're your highest value customers. They're the least likely to churn because they want to watch the sports. So let's take a look at their behavior. 80% of viewers are using a second screen whilst watching sports. They're creating their own multi-view. 70% of them, 77%, are multitasking. It's fantasy, it's stats, it's betting, it's a second screen, it's social media, it's WhatsApp chats with their friends. But really telling, 31% are actually willing to pay for a more premium experience. Maybe some of those lovely microtransactions that we heard from TF1 yesterday, really like that as a use case. So today's fans, they're building multi-view. Stats, scores, betting, etc., etc. And this behavior is not going to go away. So you have the opportunity to actually start to alter this behavior by providing a more engaging experience within your service to get more of their attention, to keep them more engaged with your service. Because if you centralize that behavior, you increase the session time. If you increase session time, you get better retention. And this is what has been seen in other markets. But let's be practical. The innovation has to match the reality. So one of my favorite quotes yesterday, it's a zoo out there when it comes to devices. You've got your legacy set-top boxes, some 15 years old. You've got the multi-device support. You've got all of these additional challenges. And this is one of the challenges that the Comcast had, was how do they launch this service on their Xfinity X1 platform, where a lot of the set-top boxes are quite old, not particularly powerful. So your architecture starts to define the economics, because there's two ways of doing this. You can do client-side. It's been around for, good gracious, 10 years or so now, if not longer. But it limits you to your really, really powerful devices. Now, it could be that you've got some operator tier Android boxes out there that are nice and powerful with quad video decoding out there, and you can deploy it on a subset of those devices. But that's not what Comcast have done. They wanted this across their entire subscriber base to delight all of their consumers at all times. So what do? You look at server-side, because if you're doing the server-side rendering of the multi-view, then any set-top box, as long as it can play video, kind of the definition of what a set-top box can do, it can work with. It also works on your smart TVs, your LGs, your Samsungs, your Videos, or, Vizios, all of those smart devices that may be a second tier to you, but can be very, very important to your customers, because, if they're anything like me, I'm not really allowed to watch sports in the living room on a Saturday afternoon on the TV with a set-top box. I'm typically in my office, if I want to watch some sports, watching it on a Samsung Smart TV. So by having all of the device support in there, by doing the server-side rendering, it allowed them to bring it to their entire subscriber base. The other thing to look at is how you want to architect this behind the scenes. And there was a very conscious decision from Comcast to do this in the cloud. And part of this was the time to market. And we'll cover this shortly in terms of exactly what their timelines were. But I'm lucky enough to be on the friendly user trial of a very large sports league in the UK who's launching a service later on this year. One of my favorite demos ever, I demoed multi-view to them in the pub. I think all demos should be in the pub, frankly. A week later, they decided they wanted to go ahead. 2 weeks later, we had an initial test up and running with their streams. And within a month, maybe 6 weeks, we had a production quality friendly user trial up and running. And frankly, this could have gone into full production there and then were they ready to go to market. So it gives you really, really fast time to market. We've got the Olympics coming up. We've got the World Cup coming up. There's lots and lots of lovely sport coming up. So fast time to market, if you want to launch these services, is going to be absolutely critical. Now, at this point, I've been lucky enough to talk to a number of operators about this already, and these are typically some of the objections that come up. And these were the exact same challenges and objections that Comcast had when they were looking at this. So it was really about how can we do this without having to rebuild our platform? Well, it's additional streaming. So this is not a platform rebuild. It integrates with your existing infrastructure. really, really important for operators. There's no permanent overhead. You're not having to do a CapEx investment. You know, again, we hear from operators all the time. We've heard from Comcast, CapEx was a big challenge for them at the time. OpEx for them, fine, easy. And they pay for what they use, they pay for the scale, they pay for the events where they can get a return on the investment, and at the end of it, they turn it off. So it allows them to test the service initially in market to understand where the customer demand was. There's no scalability risk. Whilst the cloud isn't infinite, it's pretty good at scaling. So by utilizing the cloud, if you launch it, and this is what Comcast did with a relatively small number of customers, a relatively small number of sports to start with, and then it's a huge success, boom, ramp it up. Proven demonstrably at scale. And lastly, and this is, I think, really the most important one, there's no device fragmentation. You're not just doing this on a subset of your customers, it's across your entire consumer base on any device that plays video. So, what's the timeline been for Comcast? Not indicated on here. We initially started talking with them, it was August, September timeframe in 2024 when they brought this challenge to us. And their service initially launched in November of 2024. Initially, it was with a relatively small amount of customers, a relatively small amount of sports, maybe 10, 20 streams per weekend, to test the market, understand where the market demand was, and also educate their customer base. You know, we've seen the advert earlier with Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn. You know, they're doing these adverts because A, they see the return on investment, and B, because they want to educate the market that this feature is now available and that they have it. Fast forward to March 2025, so not a huge amount of time, and they saw the demand. So they brought the service to millions of subscribers across their entire base, across sports. They actually used March Madness as the kicking off point, but they also extended it to PGA Tour Golf and various other sports as well. Not satisfied with just that, in November of last year, they launched Build Your Own Multi-View. So before this, it was operator defined. They were defining the multi-view setups, the different streams you could see. So they decided to launch Create Your Own Multi-View. This is still server-side, but using some very clever packaging technology that we developed and patented, it allows them, as a consumer, to build your own multi-view. So you can choose the sports you want to build, still on these legacy low-powered set-top boxes. And that's been massively successful for them because it's given that additional layer of delight to their consumers. So where are we now? Comcast is super happy. If we look at the US market, multi-view is now available on YouTube TV. It's been there since 2024 as well. Comcast have got it. I'm not allowed to name them because it's not public yet, but look out for a press release from them on March the 19th, when another huge US operator will launch this service ahead of March Madness. And that's because what they've realized is, whilst they weren't first to market, they have to be a really, really fast second, because the market demand is now there. If they don't have it, the competitive platforms are differentiated. So, multi-view increases session duration. It makes people watch longer. It makes them more engaged. It increases the emotional intensity. It makes your it makes your platform harder to replace because of that emotional attachment. And remember, 31% of people are willing to pay for this as well. So you have a choice. Make it available to your entire subscriber base as part of their package, make it a premium package, make it a microtransaction. The go-to-market is for you to decide. And we think that platforms that succeed in the next decade are going to be the ones that redistribute these moments that delight fans. And in our experience, in the experience of Comcast, multi-view is a feature that does exactly that. Thank you. I've got 4 minutes, 24 seconds left. So, any questions from the audience? I think they're going to bring a microphone round. I'll start with the gentleman at the front.
Thanks, Paul. Really interesting. I'm Jamie from FX. You mentioned there in like one of your final slides about creating your own multi-view. Mm-hmm. I'm going to try and get wife approval factor for sports, but where else could this be used?
So the primary use case right now is sports. We live in interesting times. So other areas where we've seen this used are around key news events. So actually Comcast did this around the US election. On election night, they had the 4 main news networks available in multi-view. A key feature of this as well is that all of the audio channels are available, so you can go through your 4-up multi-view and choose the audio you want to listen to. So that was actually very successful. So we can think about this for key news events. Obviously being British, I'm obsessed with the weather. Whilst we don't have such interesting weather, maybe if there's a big storm coming in, you could consider around a special one with the weather channels as well. Speaking to a number of other operators, they've also been looking at this potentially around big social events. So in the Middle East, a number of operators were looking at this for potentially Ramadan content for next year as well. So that's very, very interesting for them there. Gentlemen, sorry, the lights are shining. Gentleman with the glasses, in the middle.
Thanks, Paul. Congratulations on the deployment and the time to market. I think that's a fantastic achievement. Just on the user interface side, I assume that people have got the ability to turn this on or off as they're watching, so that they can hone in on the main events that they want to actually watch. For example, 4 split screen, as we saw with the ad. I assume that can be turned on or off. Will?
Yeah, it's a very, very simple player integration. So we did this just to test it ourselves, and it took one of our engineers about 2 hours on a Friday afternoon to do a player overlay, so that you can then click on the multi-view, and that then tunes you to the live game itself, and you can then bring it back out as well. So from an integration perspective, very, very simple for a player side.
Thanks.
I think I'm at time. Apologies, otherwise they'll start playing the music. If you want to grab me afterwards, I'll be outside probably grabbing a coffee and relaxing a little bit. Just 2 little QR codes for you. If you want to know more, QR code up there. NAB Streaming Summit with Dan Rayburn. If any of you will be there, we'll be on stage actually with a couple of people from Comcast there as well to really dive into the nitty-gritty and actually hear from them exactly how this was done. If any of you are at NAB, we'd love to see you there. If not, we'll be recording it, and please keep an eye out for it on social media as well. Thank you everyone for your time this morning. Really, really appreciate it, and have a fantastic show.